I strongly oppose H.R. 884, which would repeal a law duly enacted by the District of Columbia because D.C. should be free to govern its own local matters. Republicans claim that Congress has a constitutional duty to legislate on local D.C. matters, but this is historically and legally incorrect. Republicans legislate on local D.C. matters only when they think they can score political points, such as by demonizing immigrants. Where is this passion and work on affordable housing for D.C. residents? Where is this impassioned work on ending gun violence for D.C. residents? They only bring it up to the floor when they think they can score political points, taking away the democratic rights of people here in D.C. and home rule. The framers expected Congress to establish a local government for D.C., and Congress has established various forms of local government for D.C. since 1802. The Supreme Court has held that Congress may delegate to D.C. legislative authority over local D.C. matters. In 1973, Congress passed the D.C. Home Rule Act, which gave D.C. an elected chief executive and an elected legislature, the mayor and the D.C. City Council. The purpose of the Home Rule Act is to, quote, grant the inhabitants of the District of Columbia powers of local self-government and, quote, to relieve Congress of the burden of legislating upon essentially local D.C. matters, end quote. H.R. 884 contravenes the purpose of the Home Rule Act. D.C.'s Local Residents Voting Amendment Act of 2022 allows D.C. residents who are not yet U.S. citizens to vote only in local elections. Only in local elections, namely for mayor, members of the city council, the State Board of Education, attorney general, advisory neighborhood commissioner, and ballot measures. The D.C. law does not allow non-citizens to vote in federal elections, which is a crime under federal law. Regardless of your views on the merits of non-citizen voting for local elections, we have to acknowledge that D.C. is not the first, nor are they the only jurisdiction in our country to allow this. At various points throughout throughout American history, Congress in 40 states have allowed non-citizens to vote in local, state, territorial elections, including the home state of the sponsor of this bill. Congress did not prohibit non-citizens from voting in federal elections until 1996. And today, about 20 municipalities allow non-citizens to vote in local elections. I also want to address very specific concerns that we're hearing from our Republican colleagues. Number one, they're concerned that foreign diplomats might vote in local D.C. elections. We believe, number one, that that's highly unlikely, both because they have to renounce their right to vote in their home country and because D.C. has no authority over federal matters and has only limited local self-government. In D.C., the penalty for voter fraud includes imprisonment for up to 5 years. To be eligible to vote in D.C., a person must maintain their residency in D.C. for at least 30 days before the election and cannot claim voting residence or the right to vote in any state, territory, or country. In a letter to Congress, the D.C. Board of Elections made it clear that to vote in a D.C. local election, a foreign diplomat would have to, quote, effectively renounce their right to vote in their country of origin, end quote. The board noted that a foreign diplomat would have to, quote, swear under penalty of law through the D.C. registration application that the person is not claiming voting residence in another country, end quote. The board also noted that an embassy address cannot be used to register to vote, since it is considered a commercial or business address, and a foreign passport cannot be used to register to vote since it does not contain a residential address in D.C. While Republicans are concerned about foreign diplomats voting in local elections, I wonder if they're aware that the United States, that currently in this country, United States citizens who are registered under the Foreign Agents Registration Act are currently allowed to vote in elections at all levels of government in the United States, including federal elections. That's right. Registered foreign agents who are currently U.S. citizens can vote anywhere in the United States. Republicans are also concerned that undocumented immigrants might vote in local D.C. elections. That's highly unlikely because the D.C. voter roll is public record, and undocumented immigrants likely would not want to identify themselves, including their address. In closing, The House of Representatives is considering the wrong D.C. voting rights bill here today. Republicans claim that voting is a core right or the privilege of American citizenship. And not only is that historically incorrect, but I described earlier, it's also hypocritical. Republicans have fought tooth and nail to defeat legislation that would give the American citizens who reside in D.C. voting representation in the House and the Senate. We, of course, continue to push for D.C. statehood, and I urge the House to reject H.R. 884 and instead to pass H.R. 51. Thank you. I yield back.